This is Patrick Christys tonight with me, Ben Leo, only on GB News. And one of you have made me laugh on gbnews.com/you'll say. You said, Richard, good evening. Ben, Liverpool is not in the northeast, but the northwest. Stick to Essex, young man. Indeed, you're absolutely right. Slip of the tongue, which is why I have some sympathy for Keir Starmer today and the sausages gaff. Anyway, we move on. Speaking at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool early today, also taken to the stage, was the Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood. And she made this eye-catching policy announcement.
And it is clear now that if we change how we treat women in prison, we cut crime, we keep families together, and we end the harm that passes from one generation to the next. And for that reason, I am today announcing that this government will launch a new body, the Women's Justice Board, with the ultimate ambition of having fewer women's prisons.
OK, I'm joined now by former prison governor Rhona Hotchiss on this. Good evening, Rhona. Thank you for joining me. Look, should female prisoners get an easier ride? That doesn't sound like equality to me.
Well, on a case-by-case comparable offence basis, no. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that the majority of women who go to prison are there for non-violent offences. Now, I should say at the outset that we send far too many men to prison as well. So I would like to see what Ms Mahmood is proposing also looked at for the men's estate to keep more men out of prison. But the truth is we could cut the number of women in prison probably by about 2/3 if we invested in community alternatives.
So are you saying then that prisons should only be for violent offenders, both male and female?
I think it should be for violent offenders or extremely persistent offenders in an attempt to rehabilitate them in some way. But to send people to prison for non-violent offences seems to me to be an awful...
Oh, Rhona, I spent some time in San Francisco last year in the infamous Tenderloin district, you know, and there are policies over there where you let anything go. You can shoplift up to $900 in California, and you'll get away with it. You won't go to prison. And do you know what's happened over there? It's turned into a crime-ridden hellhole. Could you imagine what the UK would turn into if we said to people, OK, guys, you can commit crime, as long as it's non-violent, you won't be going to prison?
So the USA has the highest rates of imprisonment in the Western world, and they also have the highest homicide rate in the Western world and the highest crime rates overall. So their policies to date haven't worked. Banging a lot of people into prison does not reduce crime. Finding effective alternatives in the communities they come from do. So what I would do with shoplifters, for example, is make them work for nothing in the shops, make them clean the staff toilets, make them clean up all the rubbish in front of the shops. Let's make the punishment fit the crime.
But Rhona, again, I look to the US, and actually it's happening in the UK as well now as well. I've seen it myself. You go into, say, their version of Boots, was it Walgreens or something, everything is behind a padlock. It's all locked up. If you want to buy toothpaste or mouthwash, you have to call an assistant because everybody is on the rob. Again, could you imagine what it would turn out like here? Are you honestly saying that the UK would be better if we didn't send non-violent criminals to prison?
Yes, I do. Now, obviously, what we cannot just stop sending people to prison without proper alternatives, because we have to stop reoffending. If we do nothing to stop the offending and stop reoffending, of course the country would turn into shambles in 6 months flat. But that's not what I'm saying. I don't think that's what Ms Mahmood is saying either, because she talked about investing in community alternatives. She talked about, and I'm not a Labour voter, by the way, she talked about having more residential rehabilitation facilities for drug and alcohol addiction. And it's these kind of solutions we need, because, speaking as a former prison governor of men and women's prisons, we cannot do anything about these things in prison because we're not dealing with the causes of crime in the communities these people come from.
Well, I guess prison is meant to be a deterrent, but when they're letting them out early, and some would argue that they're akin to sort of Butlins holiday camps these days with TVs and mobile phones. Maybe you can shed some light on that. But Rhona, people are saying, just like they push positive discrimination to stamp out things like racism and inequality, they bang on about gender equality, yet come up with ideas like this. Do you see the discrepancy?
Yes, I do, if you're talking about like-for-like crimes, but most of the time we're not. As you know, men commit most of the violence in society and women are the biggest victims. So more than half of women in prison have suffered abuse and sexual abuse, violent abuse at the hands of men, and that is part of their offending. If you're talking about women who've committed serious violent offences, then I would keep them in prison, as I would keep men who've committed serious violence offences in prison as well.
OK. Rhona, just a quick one. When did you leave the industry, your prison?
5 years ago.
OK. And do you think things have changed much since then?
No, not really, no, because we're not really taking this seriously. That's why I'm delighted to hear this. But it's going to be a 5-year process, I think, for Labour. So this new justice group they've announced will be very, very important. OK,
I will politely agree to disagree with you on your thoughts on criminality. But thank you for joining me, Rhona Hotchiss, your former prison governor. OK, yeah, interesting idea. Yeah, not sure if I